Psalm 50 and the first 12 verses, a psalm of Asaph. The mighty one, God the Lord, speaks and summons the earth from the rising of the sun to where it sets. From Zion, perfect in beauty, God shines forth. Our God comes and will not be silent. A fire devours before him, and around him a tempest rages. He summons the heavens above and the earth that he may judge his people. Gather to me this consecrated people who made a covenant with me by sacrifice. And the heavens proclaim his righteousness, for he is a God of justice. Listen, my people, and I will speak. I will testify against you, Israel. I am God, your God. I bring no charges against you concerning your sacrifices or concerning your burnt offerings, which are ever before me. I have no need of a bull from your stall or of goats from your pens, for every animal of the forest is mine, and the cattle on 1,000 hills. I know every bird in the mountains, and the insects in the fields are mine. If I were hungry, I would not tell you, for the world is mine, and all that is in it. This is the word of the Lord.
And for our sermon this morning, we've got on video Tony Payne from the Generosity Project, the Australian, and then input from 2 or 3 others as well in this country. So here is the generous God the generous creator and sustainer.
I don't know if you experience this as you look at those Bible passages about God as our mighty creator, but they make me realise that my view of God is too small. It's a stunning picture that the Bible paints of this absolutely sovereign, immensely powerful, infinitely wise God who made all this, who made us, who made every living creature under heaven. And who also constantly sustains and provides for all of his creation, large or small, who gives us life and breath and everything else, and who generously provides so many good things for us to use and to enjoy. What an extraordinary and generous God.
The Bible tells us that God is the great creator of all things. And as the creator, he is above and beyond everything, and definitely above and beyond us. The Apostle Paul says, if you just look around the world, you should be able to work out there's an amazing God, and he's a God of infinite power. So just think of the things we can see with the naked eye. You can see the stars in the sky, the sea, the mountains, animals, birds, fish, everything. God made it all with a word of command. He's a God of awesome power. But much more than that, the Bible says he's a God of infinite love. So he created everything in love. He made us human beings in his image in love, and he delights that we enjoy the good gifts that he keeps showering upon us. Everything we have is a gift of his. Think of the Apostle Paul saying he himself gives us all things, breath and life and everything else. It's amazing. He gives us much more than we need. So God hasn't just made a functional world that works and that's it. It does amazingly work, but on top of that, it's wonderfully beautiful. And God delights when we enjoy the rich variety and wonder of the world that he's made. He gives us so much more than we need and so much more than we deserve. You think about it, we're just takers by nature anyway. So we take and take and take and hardly ever stop and say that little word, so easy to say, but very hard actually to say it. Thank you. We're takers, and God is a giver. He just keeps on giving and giving and giving. You could define generosity as kindly giving someone more than you're obliged or expected to give. Well, that's God. He gives us far more than he's obliged to give us. He's not obliged to give us anything, and much more than he could ever be expected to give. I think most of us, certainly those of us who call ourselves Christians, we know that very well. But it's very easy to forget it and to live with the illusion of control, as if somehow we're in control of our lives and the things that we get are just because of our effort. We've earned them, almost we deserve them. We take them for granted. We don't even say thank you. It's ridiculous, because when we stop to think, surely we realise everything we have is a gift of God's amazing grace. He is the definition of generosity.
I used to be in medical practice, and on the operating table you get to see hearts beating time after time after time, and you'd be bowled over by the fact that God is the generous creator and provider. More than that, I thought about how our tongues worked and how God had provided taste buds with sweet and sour and all kinds of different things. And you realise this is a God who hasn't just provided a food for us to eat that satisfies us and fills our bellies, but a God who gives us all kinds of food to delight in. And I guess when you think about a God like that, it means that you can rejoice. It means that you can rejoice every time that you take a breath in or feel your heartbeat in a God who is our creator. And more than that, when you taste a good food, you can be thankful that God is our generous creator and provider. And more than just rejoicing, we can rest too. It's easy to struggle to be content with what we've got. And yet, even though we may not have everything that we want, if God is the generous creator and provider, then we can be content that this is a God who will give us what we need and who knows what's best for us. And we can also rest in the way that we think about the future. It's easy, again, to be worried about the future, not knowing what tomorrow will bring. And it's great to be able to know that we have a God who is this generous creator and provider. And so he will provide what we need. And so it releases some of the worry that we can feel. And more than that, as well as resting and rejoicing, we can release the resources that he's given us for the good of others.
Understanding how generous God has been to me in creation helps me to become a more generous person, because now I can operate out of faith rather than fear. I don't have to be anxious and fearful about what might happen in the future. Instead, I can have faith, trusting that the same God who so generously provided for me and us in creation will continue to provide for me all of my needs into the future, right into eternity. And so I think that has multiple implications, and one of which would be in regards to our money. And so generosity is a funny word in church circles. It's often the word that we use when we actually are trying to talk about money. So let's talk about generosity. But it has implications for our generosity, because generosity, it's about more than money, but it's not about less than money. And so money is really a liquid form of God's good and generous gift to us in creation. And so with it, it gives me an opportunity to obtain, to use, and to enjoy other good gifts of a generous God, both for myself, and I can use it to obtain it and give that to others. And so there's lots of things that we could say about money, but I suppose probably the most important thing to say is that money in and of itself is actually a really good gift of a generous God to his people. And so it's not bad in and of itself, any more than things like sex or marriage or steak or anything like that are bad. Actually, in the hands of someone who understands just how generous God has been to us in creation, money itself is not only a good gift, it also gives the one who has it great potential to do good for others.